Well, welcome to the show. I'm Joe Hyde, and with me to my left, is the guru of all things real estate, Brian Newlin, good friend from ERA Newlin and Company. He's one of the real estate brokers here in town. And Brian, before we start, I have to show you my prop.
All right.
So basically, we had to have flow to these interviews. So I brought with me my game board for San Angelo. So we're going to talk monopolies and money.
No, I like this compared to the last few times I've been in. It's
so we have the board. So we'll just go around the board and see what's going on. And I guess we got to start with Go, which is down there by downtown San Angelo, which is it's a lot of commercial stuff there, but also we have Santa Rita.
Yeah.
And if you go, I guess there's some houses up on 3rd Street in that area there. But let's talk about commercial.
And there's there's a few places to live downtown. Not many, but
like
a few.
Apartments and condos.
We had someone, I heard about it I think yesterday. Someone called and they have a condo in downtown Austin, and they want something like that here.
Did you tell them you had to build it?
Like that doesn't exist in San Angelo. So
well,
we do have a cool building up on North Chadbourne with like a shop down below, like a giant garage.
Mm-hmm.
And a little apartment upstairs, which would be pretty neat for a car guru or something like that. So
auto repair guy.
Yeah. Or just the car collection.
You know, in Lubbock, one of the big things to commercial real estate that they're building on the south side on all those little county roads are these. They're like storefronts, and they have two garage doors in the back, and they're metal buildings.
Yeah.
And you could set up if you're carpet cleaning or something like that, you can set up your whole thing.
And there's a few of those here, and I'm not sure why there's not more. We've actually got some for sale right now out on 67. Kind of they're 2 living spaces, 2 garages, so you can buy like a duplex, rent half of it out, live in the other half, work in the other half, however you want to do. But there some guys built 7 or 8 of them off of Cox Road a few years ago, and they all sold quick. Like, they're not available any longer.
I mean, there's high utility value with those.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a startup business.
They're flexible and
so downtown, besides the lack of condos, what are we looking at as far as the appreciation of value of those buildings? Like say on Chadbourne, there's still some empty ones. And
there's been appreciation over the years. Obviously, after COVID, everything went up in value. But I have seen buildings that have sold 5 years ago and then have already resold again and got more money than they got when they paid. So, we'll see. Downtown continues to get a little better every year, but we might add 3 things and we'll lose 2. So,
right.
It's always kind of a even wash.
3 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps back. All right, so moving out of the commercial realm of downtown San Angelo, now we have residential, which I would say let's include Santa Rita. Some of the nicer homes, like I was Brian Benson. He built 2 homes on Paseo de Vaca, brand new homes. Did you see those?
I've seen them. Yes.
I was amazed.
Did you see who owned that dirt before he bought them?
Who?
Lane Carter.
Lane Carter. You think that was an inside deal, inside job?
No, Lane wanted to. Lane had he was going to build on those. I talked to him about it for years. He always had planned on building 1 house on that lot.
Right.
And he found another lot he liked better, so he just sold them, bought the next lot, and he's going to build there. So.
Wow.
But they got 2 houses on that lot. One of those houses sold. It was the Parade of Home. It's already closed.
That was about $800,000 house. I'm thinking.
I think it was more than that. A little bit more than that.
Yeah.
And then there's one still right there on the corner. It's pretty. Like, it's finishing up. I think we're about to put it on the market here in the next, I don't know.
Well, the interesting thing about that, Paseo de Vaca is probably the nicest street in Santa Rita. And it had 2 infield lots. So we're talking about infield development, which we'll get to a little bit later.
The Grierson and Avenue L had 4 infill lots.
So what happened to the houses that were there? Did they burned down?
No, it was just privately owned land that whoever owned it never sold it until they decided to sell it.
What's an interesting house that's for sale right now off the top of your head there in that area?
The most interesting?
Yeah. I'm putting you on the spot.
Oh gosh, I don't know. Yeah. I know. We just listed a property on Yucca.
Okay.
And it needs work. It's, I don't know, but it's on Sulphur Draw. So It's hard to find a house on Sulphur Draw. I think it's
and Sulphur Draw is that
it's the little Crawdad Creek that runs through Santa Rita.
Right.
You used to be able to catch crawdads down there when I was a kid. I don't
But
know
now
if you
it's
can any
dry.
longer. No, it's wet today. It rained last night.
Well, of course it's going to be wet today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that house
In
is
fact, I
on.
couldn't even get out of my house today because it's so dang wet.
Yeah, out there in the county.
Out there in the county, I was in a county road, so we have like actually Banda lives out there too, and Banda couldn't come to work. He texted me this morning and says, "I'm not going to be able to come to work until it drops to below 1 foot." So I crossed it. I took my big ass truck out there.
Yeah.
And I crossed over. And I said, "Banda, it's at 0.75 feet now. You can come into work." But anyway.
But there's right now we have over 550 houses for sale in San Angelo. So
how many?
No, over 550 in San Angelo.
That's pretty normal, isn't it?
No, it's it was probably in the 3s and 4s pre-COVID.
Right.
And then we were at one point during COVID, we were down to 120 houses for sale in San Angelo.
That's because the interest rates were so low, and people were working from home, and they wanted better houses.
They were just buying, trading, moving up, moving down, everything. So interest rates have kind of controlled our market, and they'll continue to do so, even though they are at like a 50-year low right now, or they're under the 50-year average.
But if you're in a house with a 2.5% interest rate, you don't want to move because you'll lose that low payment.
Yeah, you don't want to move. But if you need to move, there's going to be some, you can wait forever for the rates to drop back down. That may not happen. And at the same time, you're living somewhere you don't want to live that's either too small or too big or too old or too expensive or too cheap, whatever. And, prices continue to go up.
Right.
So they've continued to go up since, we had those low rates at the end of 22, and they went up, and they've continued to go up every year.
Right. So where are we at right now sitting with interest rates?
Conventional loans are just under 7. So that's like a national average. So you could get better than that. You could get worse depending on factors. FHA is like 6.4, VA 6.4. They keep going up, and they'll go down a little bit, and then 2 days later they'll go back up, and then they'll do I think they went down a little bit today. But what needs to happen is hopefully in June the Fed will drop that rate. It looks like there's a movement.
There's a movement toward that direction.
They're trying to, but I think I looked the other day. There's like a 96% chance it will not drop. It'll stay the same in June, but there's still 3 rate drops predicted the rest of this year. So
okay, so now I'm going to say we were talking about the affordability of housing. So let's go east of downtown into Glenmore, the area around the base, Lone Wolf Bridge, that area. What are we looking for? What are we looking at in that?
Well,
market?
you're going to find houses you'll find them under 200,000. You'll find them quite a few between 200 and 300 is kind of where they fall.
200 to 300 in the Glenmore area.
In the Glenmore area, we did just list a house today on Christoval Road that's 900 on the river. Mm-hmm. But most of those houses are 1,500 square feet, maybe a little smaller. So they're going to
3 bedrooms.
Yeah, 3 bedroom, 2 bath. There's some 3-1s over there.
And that's in the Central High School district.
Yes. Yeah. If you're on the east side of Bell, you're in Bel Air schools. If you're on the west side of Bell, you're in Glenmore schools.
Okay. And any trends happening in East San Angelo? Is it going up, going down, kind of staying static? Like
I
the
would
rest of the
say,
city?
just like everything, it's probably inching up a little bit.
Okay.
And I think today to buy a house in the Glenmore School District, you're paying more than you paid last year.
Okay.
There's some new houses in that. The infill areas are.
They're infill in there?
There's
Okay.
a little bit of infill. So there's new homes going up in the middle of the older homes that have been there since the
50s?
30s and 40s.
Oh, 30s.
Oh, there's some basements over there by the base.
Is that right?
Yeah, there's some cool houses.
Wow. All right, moving north of Glenmore, let's go into Pauline.
Pauline, always
Pauline.
moving.
That's kind of where the young families go. That's always what I thought.
Yeah, there's a lot of families that move out there, but it's just always turning over. There'll be 10 houses out for sale in Pauline today, and if I came back in 2 months, there's going to be 10 more houses for sale, but they'll be different than those previous 10.
If you were to put a house on the market today, just San Angelo, how many months do you think it would take to sell a house?
It depends where you price it and where it is.
Okay.
If you price the house in Pauline correctly, like you might try to all right, this is what it's worth. Let's go up $5,000 from that. You should sell it in a week.
Is that right?
Yeah, you can sell it in a week.
So Paul Ann is high turnover, high demand.
Yeah.
What about those houses they built up with that there was a subdivision up there.
The Aussie block?
Yeah, the Aussie block.
The Aussie block houses, he's getting them built.
And just to understand what this is like it's not synthetic, but they make these big, they look like sandstone.
It's like pressed limestone.
Yeah. And they're manufactured. And so they're real thick. So instead of having have to worry about your R factor of your brick and R factor of the space between and the studs and then the insulation in there and then the sheetrock, you have this one big block.
It's like an old school Adobe home.
Right.
Yeah, insulated. I think there's probably 5 or 6 that are completed or near completion, and I think there might be 1 or 2 for sale. The other ones have sold. So. And
how do you get to see? If you want to see it, how would you get there? I can't even remember.
You can where it's located.
Yeah.
Down McGill.
McGill.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's at the end of McGill on the right.
Okay. So the interesting homes, interesting new technology to build homes with. I thought that was that.
Yeah, no 3D homes here yet in San Angelo. That might come next.
What are 3D homes? Was that?
They're printing them on the printers.
They're printing a 3D home on the printer.
They do it. They do it in Austin. I don't know.
You know how much printing costs? It'd be very expensive.
They do it out of concrete or something.
Do they?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, moving to the east from Paul Ann. Now we're going to just that large swath.
To the east.
To the west. Large swath around the Coliseum.
North like Lakeview?
Yeah, Lakeview. North,
yeah.
You're involved in some infill development there.
Yes.
So infill development means you have an empty lot and you build a new house there.
Yeah. Well, we've built up. We found we filled up the majority of the individual lots, but now we've got a 20-acre chunk of land that we're just putting in streets and building houses on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you're building kind of like a development in the middle of Lakeview.
No, it is a development. It's called Shriners Point. So
okay.
We're building 3 and 4 bedroom houses.
Or did they make you build a hospital there too, since it's Shriners Point?
No, we're going to. The land belonged to the Shriners.
Right.
So they sold the land to the guy that we bought it from. There's a deal where on the bottom half of the subdivision, every house we build, we have to give, I think it's either $250 or $500 to the Shriners Club. Mm-hmm. When we named the streets, I went in and found a bunch of old presidents of the Shriners here, and we named the streets after those guys. So there's going to be a little park at some point, not necessarily a park, but the drainage area is they want specific types of trees and a bench, and so there's some stuff like that we're going to do.
So how big are the lots, and how do they compare to, say, a Southland, like a standard Southland home?
They're not as big as a Southland home. They're skinnier. They're not quite as deep. Some of them are deep, but we had to fit a lot of them in to be able to afford to be able to keep the prices on the houses low. So in Southland, those houses are $350 up. Mm-hmm. Our houses are $240, $250, somewhere in that.
And they're
range.
brand new,
3-bedroom or 4-bedroom, 2
so
bath.
You can say $7,500 and get a new house.
Yeah, 2-car garage. We put yards in the front. We put front yards in. We put include the appliances, so they're ready to rock.
Okay. What about other places other than the Shriner development? Or, you have a lot of other infill developments out there.
Well, see, the thing about infill developments is they're infill, so it might be 10 old houses, 2 lots, and 10 more houses. So those 2 lots get built out. Mm-hmm. So those are just scattered throughout. Mm-hmm. The city has a rebate program on those infill lots, and they've got to be in certain quadrants of town. So most of them are on the north side of town, north and east. There's a few off South Bryant, and they're all they've been building on them for years, but there's several builders that's what they seek out.
Real estate has controversy, and
not my real estate.
About 6 weeks ago, we had some controversy in our. We do a lot of real estate on Sundays, right?
Yeah.
And we had the featured listing. The big cover listing.
The fancy house is what you usually put up.
Yeah, we usually put a fancy house up there. Well, we didn't do this time. We put it was like a whole track of little 1,000 square foot. Concho Construction built them. And people just panned it, what the hell?
I read the comments.
And you talked to Zane Willard, who came up with that concept of building a bunch of affordable houses. He goes, there's only 2 ways to make housing affordable, brand new housing. You got to get either a really good lot price, mm-hmm. or you just don't make them as big.
Yeah.
Because you're going to pay the same.
Yeah,
per square foot.
he's just making smaller lots and fitting more product in those lots.
Right.
So I think it's a good idea. I think it'll work. I know that those little houses are coming up, and it might not be that like Zane's creative. If that doesn't work like he wanted it to, he'll do something of
he'll take what he learned and say, all right, I'll fix it. Yeah. Because he's done some duplexes. I think they're not duplexes.
He's done townhomes over off Bell. He's done townhomes on South Bryant. He's got more townhomes he's putting in off of back behind the bluffs. Mm-hmm. He's got that little area that's completely different, and there'll be another one coming. So, but
we're building smaller houses. He
gets better feedback from them than those Facebook comments.
Oh, I'm sure he does.
The Facebook comments were terrible, but people actually called him off that article and they're interested.
That's what he said. He said, he goes, I'm almost done with them. I'll run them one more time because I don't want people to say the most raunchiest things on it, because the more people talk on it, the more calls I got.
Well, that's yeah.
People don't understand this. People on Facebook are just...
no such thing as bad press.
Yeah, no. I guess one.
That's why I showed up here today, Joe.
You want some bad press with Ryan Newlin from ERA Newlin. All right, so we've done Lakeview, and now let's continue out on 2288. You have Buffalo Heights. You have Highland Range.
Buffalo Heights, similar to Paul Ann, it's always just turning over. Mm-hmm. There's always a lot of new homes being built, but then at the same time, there's always homes that have, they've already put up a shop and a fancy fence and they're reselling. So there's generally, I always say there's 40 houses for sale out there.
Does a pool help or hurt a Buffalo Heights home?
I would think it helps, but there's not a lot of pools out in Buffalo Heights. Yeah. There's a few.
And Highland Range?
Highland Range, well, it depends how old that pool. Some of that subdivision's pretty old. So some of those pools at this point are pretty outdated as far as being, single drain, and so I think there's so few. I think there's 35 houses with pools right now for sale in San Angelo.
Really?
So we have a link straight on our website that just says pool.
Oh, really?
So I click on it just to see.
ERANewlin.com.
Correct. But yeah, it's summertime. It's hot. It's been pretty nice this summer, but pools are still popular.
All right, so Buffalo Heights is kind of like I guess, more expensive Paul Ann.
Well, it's big lot. It's it's a totally different type of buyer. Yeah, it's a guy that it's got a truck and a work truck, or they might have
they don't want to live in the city.
They want a barn and they don't want the city taxes. So it's popular. Like again, it's the same thing. There'll be houses for sale, and next month there's the same amount, but they're all different because they turn over.
And Highland Range doesn't turn over as much?
No, there's just not as many houses, so there's not as many listings. A lot of those folks have lived there a long time. You get them. I bet there's, 5, 7 a year that sell out in Highland Range.
Mm-hmm. All right, moving south. I guess we can skip the retirement village. We can go into the Bluffs.
The Bluffs. Yeah, the Bluffs is good. There's never more than 10 houses for sale in the Bluffs.
Is that
and
right?
They always sell quick. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, popular.
It's a nice neighborhood. If you ever walk through,
it's nice.
It's very nice. Even the smaller homes, the segments with the smaller homes, it's nice streets.
We this morning on our office tour, we hit all the houses that are coming on the market, or as many whoever wants to put them on there, of up and coming listings, and go drive and walk through them. I video them, send it out to the office. And we were in the Bluffs today and saw a house on Ashford that it's I'd never noticed it. One of the coolest houses in the Bluffs, I think. It's probably on our website right now. It's on Ashford. I think it was 630 Ashford, but like a 5-bedroom.
Just say the 600 block.
600 block of Ashford, but it was like it didn't look like much from the front. It had a really cool rock rather than like the normal brick or stucco, and I think it was 5 bedrooms. It had a 2-bedroom apartment. It had a heated and cooled shop.
Wow.
And you couldn't see any of it from the street. It all and it overlooked that pond in the Bluffs.
Wow.
So pretty neat.
All right,
I think it was $750.
Moving out of the Bluffs, now we're going across 67 South, and now we're into the newer part, the northern part of Southland, where you have, I guess, there's smaller houses like Lexington, that area.
Yeah. We were there too. We were on Huntley, Newlin, we just listed. But yeah, those neighborhoods, again, the same thing. In that Preston Wood, right across from Bonham, there's never more than 2 or 3 houses for sale. They all sell. And those houses there's a few 2,000 square foot homes, but most of them are 16, 17.
What about old Southland, like Canyon Creek?
Yeah, old. So yeah, once you hit past the loop, those streets, it's like Canyon or Rockbrook was the first street.
Mm-hmm.
Generally more difficult to sell on Rockbrook. Just the kitchens were smaller. I think a lot of those were built by the Alexanders, and
they're still avocado in color.
Oh no, that's all been changed. but as Mr. Alexander built, he got smarter about his floor plans. Like,
did he really?
Yeah, they get better as they progress.
And this is George Alexander.
I think so. I believe so.
So George Alexander, he's an Aggie. So yeah. I go see him. He's passed away now, but he was interesting because he said, there's a couple things I learned from him. The first thing, the best thing I learned from him was he goes, Joe, if you want to get into real estate, you got to kick a lot of rocks.
Yeah.
He goes, you can't find the second thing he said, if you don't kick a lot of rocks, you won't be able to make money because you make money in real estate when you buy it. You don't make it when you sell it.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a smart man. He owns a lot. They own a lot of real estate in this town, but it's the same thing for brand new investors that start today. I tell them the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to start investing in real estate, you probably shouldn't go buy the first 3 houses you walk in.
Right.
So
you got to kick a lot of rocks.
Yeah, learn how to find the deals.
Right. How do you find a deal with a realtor? Hard question.
You got to be patient. It's finding a deal when houses get put on the market is tough. Like, they've got a realtor. They're going to price it. Most people are going to price a house to sell to a end user homeowner.
Right.
And so they're going to the investors are looking for deals better than that. Mm-hmm. Most deals are found outside of the MLS.
So find it before it goes on MLS.
Yes, that is. Yeah, I was actually talking to a home inspector the other day about that, and that's where you find the best deals.
Well, how do you find them? Do you have to go to a coffee shop or something?
Go
to a bar like the ArcLight?
What you have to do is always be talking about real estate or looking for real estate, and if the more people you bring that up with in a given day, the more chances you're going to have of them knowing someone,
where something is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just be boring and talk about real estate.
And it'll be like, again, it's the kind of the same thing.
I was smiling when I said that.
What'd you say?
I said just be boring and talk about real estate all day.
Oh, it's not boring. But yeah, you can't go say I've got to find an investment house this week. Mm-hmm. If you have that mentality, you could buy the wrong thing.
Well, every time I look at one, I get scared.
And that's because you haven't done many of them.
I know.
So
I get scared.
You'll eventually and I was the same way when I bought my first investment house. I was really nervous, but as time went on, it got easier.
Right. Well, another thing you told me was you really can't go wrong buying real estate.
I don't think you can.
You might have to hold it longer than you thought.
Correct. You might have to hold it longer, but with everything else, people are going to need places to live, and they're going to need places in San Angelo, Texas to live. So,
and if you see the charts for San Angelo, we have our jobs are going up. The number of people working to live here is going up. Who knows if we trust government stats anymore since Biden? But anyway, not to bring that up, but when you see the amount of jobs increasing, the population's increasing.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it does to the unemployment rate. Maybe it makes it go down. But just more and more people are working in this town.
Yeah, those data center stuff could be interesting. See how many more jobs that brings. I've heard North Abilene's crazy with all the work going on at those data centers up there. So
really,
we could get a little bit of that here.
And we got two. We got a battery center and a data center.
We got a battery center and a data center, but the fact that those two places chose San Angelo tells me that there's a reason they did, and there could be more following.
Right. All right. We're in Old Southland. Let's move on down to big, expensive Southland, toward the back, where you have the larger houses, Clearview, Grandview, that kind of area. Same kind of thing as.
Yeah. We've kind of talked about how many houses are for sale, but its price ranges right now is what, if you're under 400,000 or under 300,000, you seem like you have pretty good activity.
Right.
The higher you get, the less pool of buyers.
Yeah, we looked at a chart that said if you get over 400,000, your house could be on the market for 7 months. If it's over $1 million is 13 something.
Yeah.
13 months.
Yeah. Because the buyers are still primarily need to buy a house. Like they're moving here. They're first time home buyers. They want out of the apartment. There's still not as much moving around with people that just want to upgrade house
or downgrade.
Yeah. Yeah. Just, I'm ready to move. I'm ready to get out of this 3-bedroom and get a 4-bedroom. We're starting to see that, but it's still not to what it was pre-COVID.
So
or lower interest rates.
What kind of people, anecdotally, what kind of people are walking into your office, persona wise? Like, is it like a mid-30s, early 40s family?
No, I'm telling you, it is all over the map. Okay. It's like it's all over the map. There's every single kind of, we've closed close to 500 transactions this year in our office. And yeah, everyone and in between. So
everything's
good. Yeah.
There's not really one.
I don't think so. There's nothing that just.
We got base. What about the base? Like
base is moving. Like there's,
they're PCSing people now.
Correct. So generally in the winter and the summer. So. Mm-hmm.
So we're always getting those. And would that impact the $300,000
for
price
sure
range?
Yeah, that's probably a lot of them because they're the BAHs, the housing allowance is not as high here as it should be. Mm-hmm. I knew it was higher and they reduced it. Not sure why.
And BAH, when you're in the military, you get paid a stipend to be able to live off base.
So the closer they can find a payment
to the
BAH, the better for them.
All right.
They're going to have to supplement some because our prices and payments are too high for what they're giving. I want to say, and I'm not sure for what classification, but it's just over $1,000 a month.
We kind of talked about how the more expensive the home, it's harder to sell, more months on the market. But is Bentwood still pretty hot?
Yes. There's a lot of there's a brand new street back there, so those houses have been selling.
So new construction in Bentwood's good.
The real nice houses, they'll always have a buyer, but for really looking at Bentwood right now, there's quite a few houses for sale in there. So there's probably some deals to be had within Bentwood if you wanted to get in because there's a lot of property for sale, and they've been there for a while.
Okay. Let's see, we talked about Bentwood. We've kind of gone from the east all the way to the north, down the south. Let's talk about Christoval and Wall. Let's talk about Christoval first. So we're going
Christoval houses generally all sell really quick. There's
pretty big,
more people want into Christoval than there is housing.
Is that right?
For sure.
So that's a good place to buy.
Yeah, if you want to be in Christoval, they got the 4-day school week coming up. So
and if you don't want to go to Christoval schools, you can always send your kid to San Angelo schools.
Yes, you can. I think so. Yeah, you can transfer back. Yeah, you can transfer back. So, but yeah, Christoval's it's popular. There's just not as many. There's not as many subdivisions. It's tough to find. They can't put in subdivisions like they do out in Wall because they don't have water. It's harder to get access to the rural water. There's not as much underground water, and I think like a big subdivision in Christoval would do really well, but there's nothing out there.
There's no water for it. No mass supply.
Well, there's not enough land to make it feasible to pay the money to bring the water. It could be done.
I got you. What about Wall?
Wall? Let's see. Yeah, Wall houses generally always sell well. They're more expensive out there. They're big. They're nice. They're on big half-acre plus lots. But the resale houses sell it really well. Even the new subdivisions. We're selling lots in 2 subdivisions right now where people just buy lots and sit on them, build down the road.
Wow. All right, new construction anywhere in town. What do we got going? What do we got coming? Give us some idea. First of all, what's the hottest new construction places right now, and then what do you know that's coming up?
Well, off of Silver Spur and Clearview, that Enclave subdivision is. If you drove through there 2 years ago at the Parade of Homes, it looks 100% different. There's so many homes going up. So it's very popular.
And that's in the back of Southland, basically.
Yeah, that's at the 3600 block of Clearview.
Right.
At the front of Clearview, off like Cedar Hill, there's the Southland Village is going in. So I think they're just about through with the first street, probably 40-ish homes, and they're putting in the next street. So, and those are 350 range.
Brand new houses, 350.
Brand new houses, 350, and they're selling really well.
And what are they, about 2,000 square feet?
They are 17, 18.
Okay, so somewhere between 15 and 2,000.
Yeah.
What about? I forgot to ask about this. This is the elephant in the room, Lake Nasworthy.
Lake Nasworthy, I think, is pretty good right now. We've sold several out there recently, so it's just so expensive, but people still want to be on the lake. We still have folks from Midland driving down buying.
So when you say expensive,
homes.
what is expensive?
Well, I've been selling real estate here since 2006, so like I've seen the progression of lake houses that were they were under $100,000, and that house today is $500,000. It's hard to get on the main body.
500% increase in price.
It's hard to get on the main body of the water for less than $500,000.
Wow.
It is possible. It might be small and run down and not the best view, but yeah, to get on the main body of the water, it's over $500,000.
Wow.
Yeah,
you see a lot of $1 million homes out there. I mean, I
yeah,
do the
for
real
estate
estate lot, so.
Yeah. There's and
what about those
and
lots? What about those lots on the KOA trail? There's a whole bunch of lots. I think Chase Bruton.
Chase owns those lots. He's building houses. So
yeah,
I think he
said he's got a good response to it.
Yeah, I know he's had one sold. I know he's got one for sale, and there's several lots still there. So he's got the lots for sale. If someone wants to buy them and build their own house, they are available.
Okay.
We can help you there.
I'm gonna go to the last thing is new subdivisions that are coming that you know of that people haven't heard about yet.
Man, I don't know if there is one that even I know of. We didn't like out 67. We've got that cool subdivision out there, the Twin Buttes Ranches.
Right, that's where where Zane's building those $1 million homes.
So that's out there.
He's building $1.5 million homes out there.
Yeah, 1.1 to 1.2, I think. I think that's where they are priced right now.
My goodness.
But they're on 25, 30 acres. Yeah. They're pretty. There's some cool views out there as well.
So that's a good place to look. You want to see ideas for what your house could be when you get rich.
But I can't think of like a brand new subdivision that is currently in the works. It's, dealing with the city sometimes is kind of tough getting the subdivision going. And I know there's some developers that have been just waiting till some stuff at the city gets figured out. Are they going to go one way or the other? They've got issues with, we kind of have passed the sidewalk issues.
Well, sidewalks a couple of years ago. The next thing was green spaces. They wanted you to.
Well, there's still some issues with retention ponds.
And
right now they're wanting every subdivision to have their own retention pond.
And then the whoever builds it is going to have liability on it for the life of the retention pond. That's
the way they would prefer it.
Yeah.
But what the developers are going back and forth with, they would like to plan out some regional detention ponds that everyone kind of shared in to take care of that. Rather than, if you only have 10 acres to build a subdivision and they want 3 of it for runoff, it cuts down, it makes those lots more expensive. That cost gets passed along to the buyer. It just doesn't make sense.
Now, housing affordability is a big thing all over Texas. And my daughter is working in College Station, and she's got involved in a subdivision called Midtown in College Station. And one of the problems that they have there, they set up these municipal utility districts or MUDs, and that thing has taxing authority.
Yeah.
So if the city doesn't follow through with what they said they're going to do, which city councils change, mayors change, they forget about things. Now you're stuck in that mud district, and your taxes are going up and up and up and up.
We were the city just redid the housing study from 2019. They just updated it last month, and I was in a meeting for that, and the guy from Houston that was here was talking about MUDs, because that's how all the DFW
in Houston,
that's how they're developing and making it happen quicker than it happens here.
Well, one of the problems the city,
I don't know if it's a good idea or not. I'm not sure.
Well, I don't know what the revenue model is, but if I was looking at solving this problem, I would look at the city invests in things, right? They find things to invest in. For example, we just did a bond for the Coliseum. We invested in the Coliseum, right? Yeah. There's things that if they're serious about affordable housing, the city could invest in saying, all right, you're going to build an 80 plat or 80 lot subdivision here. That's 80 new water customers, 80 new stormwater customers, trash customers. We're going to make money on this long term. Yeah. So figure out what the internal rate of return or the net present value is of what that is, and is have the city, I mean, go ahead and spend some money and take a lot of the load off the developers.
Yeah, it would be nice to be able to develop land, sell houses, and get the prices down from what they currently are.
But I think that's what we put those utility lines in, and they're making money off the cable company and everybody else that puts any kind of services in those homes. There's got to be a net present value on their internal rate of return, and there's got to be some median in there where the city can subsidize that.
Yeah, I think and I think there's going to be some talks like that. We're waiting on that housing study, and I know that they're going to bring up some like outside the box ideas to help San Angelo kind of, at least start working toward fixing the housing problem.
If you look at that curve of all the jobs that are here, it's going up. That means we need more houses, we need affordable houses, and that's what we have government. That's why we have local government, to solve problems like that. I would say that's probably the most important issue that we have going on right now.
Yeah, and I think most citizens of this city would say the same thing. Like housing affordability is a big deal. And
you go back to the Joe Schmo that works at a bar or something like that, server or bartender or something like that, or entry level type job. Where in the heck can they live? I mean, apartments are expensive.
Yeah, well, that's one guy. Think of the company that's looking at San Angelo to come in and put in an operation and hire 100 or 200
or bring them here.
And so if they're bringing them in, they're going to look at housing availability, affordability, neighborhoods. They're going to look at all that and either say, yes, let's do it, or no, let's move on. Let's go to Abilene. Let's go to Midland. So it affects everything. And if that company did come in, that's going to take a chunk of the tax base. That's going to help all the homeowners out on their taxes. So it all works together.
Commercial or industrial property that reduces the pressure on residential property tax.
Yeah. That's why I think homes account for like 65% of the taxes that are paid in.
The property taxes.
Yeah, and in like Midland, Abilene, it's going to be less than 50.
Well, you think about our economic development competitive situation when you compare it to our money to Coast of D.C. versus Abilene versus Lubbock versus Midland, Odessa versus Wichita Falls. We don't have a whole lot to work with.
Yeah.
So I know that direct subsidies of housing development is probably not a legal way to spend that money. But it seems to me if you don't have the resources, like, for example, Abilene can outspend us probably 10 to 1 on economic development incentives to bring in companies.
Yeah.
That's why they're kicking our tail. But the other reason we're kicking our tail is because we don't really have a unified front right now on economic development from the city. We have kind of this chamber thing going on. We don't know what we've got this city that's leaderless. I mean, it has Michael Dane who's doing it part-time. We don't have one like a John Osborne like they have in Lubbock who just kind of directs all of that.
Yeah.
So we need that, but the other thing we need is we need to look at innovative ways like this, housing affordability, that you can do outside of Coast of D.C., outside of the chamber.
Or maybe work together in the whole thing.
Yeah, they can work together. Or figure out if there is half-cent sales tax money we could spend doing something to relieve the cost of building new housing.
Yeah, because if it's all on the developer, it's going to all get passed. It's going to get passed along.
And it won't be affordable.
Agree. Or it makes the developer too scared to pull the trigger.
I know there's a lot. I mean, I talked to Christian Oliver at the HBA. She said there's a lot of developers who do these smaller developments, and they just give up.
Yeah.
So they're dream takers, and we need to make some dream makers, and so that we can expand
on the board,
the San Angelo Opoly board. More houses, because right now I think our best thing we've done for affordable housing is all the infill development, because you didn't have to pay for the subdivision.
Yeah, the utilities were there.
Yeah.
The streets being policed and fire and water and everything like that already, and it adds one more water bill, taxpayer in there. Yeah.
And don't forget the trash bill.
And the trash bill, yeah.
But Ryan Newlin, he is the president and CEO of ERA Newlin and Company, which is a real estate broker here in town with lots and lots of real estate agents. Very good friend of mine. We can talk very frankly about things. I hope you enjoyed this discussion about housing in San Angelo.
Yep, let's do it again.
All right.
All right.
Y'all take care.